There is somebody here who wants mercy. The winged woman/rainbow image has a gentle, almost innocent feeling. It looks like somebody hoping to be received softly after doing something that was not soft at all. Beside it, the Nine of Cups shows a desired emotional outcome. They want something from you: comfort, forgiveness, another conversation, or confirmation that you do not completely hate them. But then I have the Eight of Swords sitting behind that wish. That changes the energy. They feel mentally trapped because an honest apology would require them to discuss something they have been avoiding. Finding the word sorry is not the difficult part. The difficult part is deciding how much truth they are prepared to place after it. That may be why the first contact does not begin with a complete confession. It could start with a quiet request to talk, a question about how you have been, or a reference to a memory you shared. Something small enough for them to withdraw if your response feels cold. And now the Vampire card is changing my first impression. This is not only remorse. There is hunger here too. They miss the emotional access they had to you. They miss knowing somebody understood them, reassured them, answered when life became difficult, or still believed there was something good inside them. That does not mean their regret is fake. It means this apology has more than one motive. Part of them wants to acknowledge what they did. Another part wants relief from what has happened since they lost access to you. I'm also getting the main backfire very early. This person delayed making a choice because they were trying not to lose either connection. The delay is exactly what caused both doors to close. Let me show you what they were trying so hard to preserve. I keep being pulled toward home. This feels like the hinge of the entire situation. There was an established life here. It may have been a shared residence, marriage, children, family structure, or simply one deeply familiar relationship that carried the practical weight of life. This was the person who knew their ordinary version. Not only the charming or romantic version, the tired version, the financially stressed version, the person they became during illness, responsibility, family conflict, or an ordinary day when nothing exciting was happening. Somebody here provided consistency. Now I'm looking at the mirror image with the blue woman holding a baby, and this changes the meaning of that established life. The baby does not automatically indicate pregnancy. It looks more like responsibility, something vulnerable that depended on this person acting with care. It may represent a child, household, marriage, shared financial responsibility, or family identity. The mirror contains different reflections. One reflection appears connected to responsibility. Another represents a different identity or desire. This person may have started treating their ordinary role as something that was trapping them. Somewhere else, they could become romantic, spontaneous, misunderstood, desired, or free. But those were not two separate people. They were two versions of the same person. The Two of Swords shows the decision they kept avoiding. They may still explain their behavior by saying they were confused. I believe some conflict was real, but remaining undecided also benefited them. As long as no final choice was made, the dependable connection remained available while the exciting connection continued developing. Then starseed, associated with self, memories, and identity, shows that each relationship knew a different version of them. The established connection knew their history, habits, responsibilities, and limitations. The hidden or newer connection may have received the story of somebody trapped inside an unhappy life, waiting for the right moment to become who they truly were. There may have been genuine unhappiness. I'm not dismissing that. But unhappy is not the same as separated. Discussing leaving during an argument is not the same as actively preparing to leave. Sleeping apart occasionally is not the same as living separate lives. That distinction matters. Finally, Syrians carries integrity and honesty. I do not want to distort this card into evidence of manipulation. Instead, it shows what the situation required and what their eventual apology must contain. If you received an incomplete version of their relationship status, you were not foolish for believing it. Enough accurate information may have been included to make the false conclusion sound believable. That is why you questioned your own instincts. But eventually, one detail contradicted the entire explanation. This is interesting because the truth cards are appearing before the romance cards. It feels like the reading wants you to understand what was exposed before hearing another explanation about their feelings. Shaman shows your instinct recognizing a pattern before you could prove it. That does not mean you were expected to accept a random fear as evidence. Your mind was noticing ordinary contradictions. Their availability may have changed at the same time each day. A particular name appeared too often. Their explanation sounded possible, but their behavior around simple questions did not match it. You sensed that something was wrong because something was not lining up. Then Crystal Vision shows one detail becoming unusually clear. I keep getting a message appearing on a screen this person forgot was connected. That is very specific and will not belong to everyone. It may have been another device, a paired screen, or something that synchronized automatically. For somebody else, it is simpler. One date does not match. A message, photograph, receipt, or ordinary comment places this person somewhere they claimed they were not. The evidence may not reveal the complete relationship. It proves that one important part of the explanation was false. That is enough to open the situation. The Ace of Swords is one clean fact cutting through months of emotional explanations. After that, I do not see a full confession arriving immediately. They explain the exact piece already visible. If one message is discovered, they explain that message. If one meeting is confirmed, they admit the meeting but change what it supposedly meant. The truth expands only when additional information makes denial impossible. Then show the world the real you brings the private identity into the open. People who knew different versions of this person begin seeing the same behavior. Someone discovers they were being described differently depending on who was listening. The hidden connection may learn they were being dismissed as insignificant. The person connected to the established life may discover private relationship problems were being shared somewhere else for months. Friends or family could also realize that the separation story they heard was incomplete. That is when Expect Powerful Change accelerates everything. The situation begins moving too quickly for this person to prepare everybody separately. One conversation produces another. Somebody confirms part of the story. A person who had remained quiet no longer sees a reason to protect the secret. You do not need every missing detail before trusting the contradiction that has already been proven. Once that first fact becomes clear, the romance cards tell a very different story. There were real emotions involved. I want to say that clearly because the Ace of Cups shows a genuine emotional opening. Somebody felt noticed, understood, or emotionally alive again. This could have begun through ordinary conversation. A friend, coworker, or previous connection became the person who heard about the established relationship problems. Private emotional support gradually became intimacy. Then the lovers adds attraction, but it also introduces a choice. Experiencing real feelings did not remove this person's responsibility to make an honest decision. That was the part they kept postponing. The Rose Garden couple image adds intense physical desire. The couple exists inside a private, comfortable world, protected from ordinary responsibility. That explains why the connection felt so powerful. They met or communicated during selected moments when both could present their most desirable selves. They did not necessarily experience each other during financial pressure, exhausted mornings, family conflict, or parenting responsibilities. The feelings may have been real, but the relationship had not been tested by a shared life. The Nusians brings romance, empathy, and soulmate energy. Somebody may have honestly believed this connection was more than a temporary attraction. There could have been serious emotional promises. This person may have spoken as though they had finally met someone who truly understood them. But then I look at soulmate. The word is printed on the card, yet the image shows one person sitting alone inside a tent. That contrast is the heart of the connection. One person was given enough intimacy to believe in the relationship, but not enough access to become part of the other person's life. They were called a soulmate while being left alone with the promise. That does not make every feeling imaginary. It means the future attached to those feelings was not being built. Now Gray's short shows how the situation remained protected. Its figures carry secrecy, shyness, and fear of being misunderstood. Keeping the connection private may initially have been presented as temporary or considerate. This person could have said they were avoiding unnecessary conflict or waiting until everything was settled. But privacy kept extending into secrecy. With Dreamer, communication becomes important. The woman is holding a phone while her attention appears somewhere else. The connection was probably easiest during gaps in the day, and more difficult once this person returned to ordinary life. I keep seeing somebody who could speak freely during a break or while away from home, but became inconsistent when spontaneous access might reveal too much. If you were waiting for them, the silence was not necessarily proof that you were unimportant. It reflected when this person had privacy. But it also revealed the limitation of what they were offering. Then delay shows the pattern that became exhausting. There was always something that needed to happen before an honest decision could be made. Not forever, just not yet. One more family responsibility. One more financial complication. One more difficult conversation requiring better timing. When one reason expired, another appeared. And Dreaming Johnny shows somebody sitting on a dock looking into the distance. They could imagine movement clearly without actually moving. This person may have spoken beautifully about where they wanted to live, the future they wanted, or what would happen once the relationship became public. But whenever one practical action was required, the plan moved farther away. Eventually, somebody stopped accepting the dream as evidence of progress. That is when the situation became impossible to contain. The passion and fearlessness of fire element made this person reckless. They believed they could handle the consequences later. They kept moving forward even though an honest decision had not been made. But that same fire eventually became conflict. Somebody wanted an answer immediately. Not after another family event, not when the financial situation improved, not after another private conversation. Now! With prevention, we see a warrior blocked by an enormous stone. Your person attempted to prevent the complete story from spreading, but the situation had become too large to manage quietly. They may have reassured the established partner that the other connection was insignificant. But somewhere else, they had described that same connection as love, destiny, or the future they genuinely wanted. Both explanations could survive only while the people receiving them remained separated. Once the hidden connection discovered how they were being minimized, they had less reason to protect the secret. And once the established partner saw how much planning, waiting, or intimacy was involved, the claim that it meant nothing became impossible to accept. Then a fiery climax approaches, brings the argument, ultimatum, or final demand. This may not have happened in one dramatic confrontation. It could have unfolded across several days as new information surfaced, and each explanation created another question. But eventually, somebody refused to wait. Somebody else refused to accept another partial confession. Practical consequences began appearing. A key was returned. Shared access changed. Plans were canceled. A photograph disappeared. Somebody who had always answered stopped responding. I also keep seeing an uncomfortable explanation to family, why a person is suddenly no longer attending something, why a living arrangement changed, or why plans that had been publicly discussed are no longer happening. Then death ends the structure they had created. It does not necessarily mean nobody involved will ever communicate again. It means the former arrangement cannot be restored. The arrangement where one person controlled the information while receiving different things from different connections. Finally, nothing will come of this situation shows the sharpest part of the backfire. The alternative future did not become what they expected. Once the hidden relationship entered ordinary life, ordinary questions appeared. Where will they actually live? What happens to the existing responsibilities? Can somebody trust a person who maintained two versions of the truth? Even if the new relationship was attempted, suspicion entered it immediately. Someone may now wonder whether the same pattern will happen again when another exciting connection appears. The fantasy had never been required to survive a complete life. When it finally had to, it began falling apart. Meanwhile, the established relationship had also changed. The emotional security, familiarity, or practical support they previously relied on was no longer automatically available. That is why they are looking backward now. They delayed choosing because they believed time was preserving their options. Instead, the delay destroyed the life they were trying to keep and the future they thought would replace it. And there is one more meaning here. Their apology may not create the reunion they are hoping for. It may give you clarity. It may give them an opportunity to admit what happened, but it does not guarantee that the old relationship can be restored. Now we come back to you. If this person contacts you, listen to what they actually name. They may apologize for everything, for the situation, or for how badly things ended. But if they never name the lie, hidden connection, changing timeline, or promise they repeatedly postponed, they are apologizing around the behavior. A sincere apology does not require you to reconstruct the truth for them. You will also learn something from what happens when you do not immediately make the conversation comfortable. Do they allow you time? Does the explanation remain consistent after the emotional moment passes? Can they hear your anger without turning the conversation toward how badly they are suffering? A real apology does not expire because you needed time to think. You are also allowed to privately ask yourself whether this contact would be happening with the same urgency if their other situation had worked. You may never receive a perfect answer, but you already recognize the difference between somebody offering truth and somebody searching for relief. Vegans carries solitude, independence, and peace. Being outside the situation is not punishment. It may be the first time you are no longer adjusting your emotions around somebody else's silence, indecision, or changing explanation. You do not have to keep interpreting when they disappear. You no longer have to wait for another deadline or compete with a future that never receives a real date. Then it's time to release negativity, asks you to stop carrying the confusion they created. That does not mean pretending the betrayal was harmless. It means their choices no longer get to occupy every empty space in your mind. You can understand why they are apologizing without becoming responsible for making them feel forgiven. Finally, a new start is coming shows the beginning that follows this ending. Reconciliation may be considered by somebody watching, but it would require a genuinely new relationship built through honesty and consistent action, not the old relationship reopened because somebody became lonely. For many of you, the apology provides confirmation rather than reunion. You may listen. You may even believe they are sorry. But I do not see you waiting in the same emotional place where they left you. They believed time was giving them more options. In reality, it was giving you enough distance to stop waiting. Their apology belongs to them. The new beginning belongs to you. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next reading.